Have you ever started a simple conversation with your spouse only to end up wondering, how did we get here? Well, if you're tired of small disagreements turning into painful fights, you're about to learn how to stop the cycle before it starts. And this could be one of the most important skills you build in your marriage. So, in the next few minutes, we're going to unpack some powerful truths that can change the way you handle conflict forever. First, how you and your spouse can share different opinions, even on things that matter most, without it tearing you apart. Second, how to spot those personal hot buttons before they explode. And third, the simple Christ-centered steps to keep a disagreement from turning into words or actions you'll regret, so you can walk away feeling connected instead of wounded. So let me start with something light. My daughter Josie makes the most incredible homemade chocolate chip cookies from scratch. And every time she makes them, I tell myself, I'm just going to have one. Is one cookie bad? No, one cookie's awesome. One cookie's a treat. But here's the thing, it's rare that I only eat one. There have been times I've eaten all the cookies. And when that happens, it escalates pretty quickly. Disagreements in marriage are a lot like that. One small bite, one small disagreement, it's harmless. Everybody has it. But left unchecked, it can escalate into something much bigger and faster than we ever expected. So not long ago, we hosted a couple here at our farm for a 3-day marriage intensive. And on day one, they explained their reaction cycle. They knew it. They knew how small disagreements would quickly spiral into these knockdown dragouts, right? Well, on day two, the next day, we hit a hot button topic. And before you know it, man, right in front of me, they were in a full-blown fight that lasted a while. I mean, yelling, words flying. I didn't have to imagine their reaction cycle. I got to witness it. A front row seat. And guys, it was a sight to behold. And it's a reminder to us that even couples who know better get caught in this escalation trap. That's why what we're talking about today matters so much. Because the difference between a disagreement and a fight is often just a few unguarded moments. So most of the time, the fight isn't really about the surface issues. It isn't about this. The fight's really about this. It's about those triggers underneath. It's about those emotions, those past wounds, and the absence of Christ-centered self-control in the moment. See, Proverbs 29:11 tells us, a fool gives full vent to his spirit, but a wise man quietly holds it back. And guys, that's what we're after, self-control and a wisdom that holds back. So, what are your hot buttons? A hot button is a sensitive topic that sets you off almost instantly. Think of it like a bruise on your arm, and then someone accidentally hits that bruise. For one spouse, it might be a certain tone of voice or temper or a spirit that sets them off. For another, it might be feeling dismissed. And guys, these are deeply personal, and they're different for everyone. So to discover yours, you have to pay attention to the last few times you've gotten upset. What was the real thing under the surface? So finding this out, this under the surface thing, it's the first step in dismantling this bomb. So you need to pray about it and then write it down, what the Holy Spirit tells you that thing was. Could it be that you're holding on to some bitterness or unforgiveness in your heart towards your spouse? Maybe so. Proverbs 14:29 says, whoever is slow to anger has great understanding. Okay, so what do you do next? James 1:19 tells us to be quick to listen and slow to speak, and even slower to become angry. This means building in a pause before you react. It could be taking a deep breath and silently praying, Lord, help me to react with gentleness. Help me to react as you will. I've done that many times. It could be stepping away for a moment and taking a time out. And then bring the Holy Spirit into that moment. That pause, that time out, it breaks the escalation cycle. And guys, it gives the Holy Spirit room to work. Bring him into this. And then biologically speaking, what happens there? What did God set up in our heads to happen there? Well, it rewires the stimulus in our brains, that emotional stimulus. It rewires it from the amygdala, or the emotional processor in our brains, to the neocortex. And that's where we make business decisions, right? So when asked for in a calm manner, a well-placed timeout could be the difference in whether a disagreement gets resolved or whether it turns into a huge fight. But you have to remember this: you must come back and discuss it. If not, you didn't take a timeout. You simply ran and avoided the issue. So once you come back, start the conversation again. And a great way to start the conversation is usually with an apology. You don't have to apologize for being right or being wrong or whatever, but you can apologize for your tone or own your stuff. And then share your feelings. When you share feelings instead of blame, you open up the door to understanding. And that's what we're after: understanding our spouse and them understanding us. Try saying this. Try saying, "I felt hurt when you did this," instead of, "You always do this," right? That simple shift, it invites connection instead of defensiveness. And then when you really listen to your spouse's response, guess what? You're showing them that you value the relationship more than just winning the argument or winning the point. Remember, Philippians 2:3-4 reminds us to value others above ourselves. And in marriage, that means valuing unity over proving that you're right. Sometimes the most Christ-like thing you can do is lay down your right to the last word and to protect your oneness in the relationship. And that's what we're after. Let's be honest, unless it's a black and white issue or a moral biblical issue, usually no one's entirely right. The right solution is usually just the one you both agree on. See, guys, conflict is inevitable. It's going to happen in marriage. But when you invite Christ into it and you give him the space to soften your heart and guide your words, the Holy Spirit can produce in you the patience, the kindness, the gentleness, the self-control that you can't muster on your own. See, everything we've talked about today will help you handle disagreements better. But here's the simple truth: you can't sustain it in your own strength. Real, lasting change only happens when you're walking closely with Jesus every day, letting him shape your heart. Through that, he'll shape the way you communicate. It's so easy to speak to your spouse harshly and hatefully. But what would it look like if you could speak life into one another? Well, to learn to do this, I want you to check out this classic marriage adventure video right here.